everyone, it's T. So one thing that I'm really missing lately is production designing other people's films. It's something that I used to do a lot just for free because I really loved it. So I thought to myself, like, I really want to do something on, like, production design. And luckily I just watched I'm Thinking of Ending Things on Netflix. It is a surreal kind of art house drama. But yeah, so I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about the production design in the film. All right, I just realized that I forgot to actually explain what production design is, so we're going to go to good old Wikipedia to explain it for us. The production designer is the individual responsible for the overall aesthetic of the story. The production design gives the viewers a sense of time period, plot location, character actions, and feelings. Now back to me. So I'll be going over three main things: how the production design shows character, how it emphasizes the themes of the entire film, and also I wanted to talk about how the costume intersects with the production design and all of the other things within the film. Because I like costume, but also because I think it's really important to everything else that was going on within the film. I will start this off by saying this video will have massive spoilers because almost everything in this film is pretty connected. So if you care about that, or like you want to watch it and not be spoiled, I would suggest you watch this later. Come back to me. But yeah, the spoilers start now. I warned you. So the basic premise of the film is that the main character, who is this young woman, she's never named, is going to her boyfriend Jake's house to meet his parents. And throughout the film, she's thinking of ending things with him. Now it is revealed in the end that he is actually a janitor in a high school and that the young woman is a figment of his imagination. So the production design really kind of emphasizes almost everything that's going on. That's why I really loved the production design in this film. It's like, it really ties everything together. So first of all, in general, I wanted to talk about the montage of PD in the first, 2 minutes. It's everything that you're going to see throughout the film in terms of the parents' house, the floral wallpaper, the different trinkets that are lying around, the wheelchair. It was only upon my second watch that I realized that you can see the janitor walking around this house, getting his breakfast, cleaning his dishes. This is his house. He lives in his parents' old home. That's something, I feel like that's something that you don't really get upon the first watch because so much else happens. It kind of shows that he's stagnating within the house, how much he feels kind of isolated within that house, how much it affects every single point in his life. It's very interesting to just look at that first 2-minute sequence. Now, one of my favorite aspects of the film, and frankly what made me want to do this video at all, was the floral wallpaper. I really fell in love with that. Upon my first viewing of the trailer, I was like, oh, look at this floral wallpaper. I have done very cursory research on this, so forgive me, but I believe that specific wallpaper was very popular within the mid 20th century. I want to say the 40s to the 60s. It really dates the occupants of the home, especially because say his parents were in their 20s or 30s in the 60s or the 50s, the son of those people would probably be in their 40s or 50s or 60s now. So it's just very interesting to understand that timeline and how much backstory just something like the wallpaper can give for you. Now, the general house colors stick to the overall color palette of the movie. They're very much greens and blues and browns. There are very few colors within this film that are not those colors. There's a couple whites, a couple of oranges, but mostly it's those three colors: greens, blues, browns. There's very little contrast in these colors. They're all along the same kind of palette. It feels very much how the mind works. It blends everything together, especially when you look at the characters' outfits, the characters' costumes, and see that they're also blending in with the house. But I'll talk about that more later. As far as smooshing together all of the noticeable attributes of the house and making it one amorphous blob of blue and green and brown is very interesting. So going back to the costume, all of the characters seem to match with the colors of the house. So the woman wears a floral dress and a striped sweater in varying shades. We'll get more on that later because she's a special case. And then Jake wears a brown blazer with a kind of jean dark blue button-up. The parents also match the decor. So all of the characters mimic and embody their surroundings. They're kind of blending into the house. And in that way, it's almost like the house is also a character. I think the production design really adds to this, like the house and the architecture, the way that it was built, the small details really embody like this house is a character. This house is the inside of his mind. This house is him at the same time that it is itself. If that makes sense. It probably doesn't. We're gonna move on. This is an aside, but I really want to talk about this floral background that she sits against when she questions why she doesn't remember anything from her life. I don't know like what it's supposed to symbolize, but honestly, it's just like a really great shot, and I wanted to talk about it. Like, this is the reason why I wanted to do this video in the first place. So next, let's talk about the spread on the table during the dinner scene. I really thought this was interesting. During the first part of the film, Jake talks about how his mother is sick and she can't really cook much. And then there's this gigantic spread on the table. All of it is like overwhelming and like too much, especially for like a 4-person dinner. And kind of a detail that I didn't really think about in my first viewing is that no one's eaten anything. I think the only person that's seen eating in the house is Jake. Like, I think that's a thing. This whole spread and the cake that's seen later. Jake wants to impress his girlfriend with this feast. He knows that it probably won't happen because his mother is sick. Yet, here it is in front of her, and no one's eaten it. It's just a very interesting look into his own mind and into his own insecurities. He wants his girlfriend to be impressed. He wants his girlfriend to feed him, yet he downplays like his parents' abilities to provide like the perfect experience for either of them, really. So going back to costume, I believe that the young woman changes costume about 4 to 6 times within the entire film. This is kind of obvious when Jake or his parents refer to her by the different names, Lucy, Lucia, Luisa. Each time she is referred to by a different name, she's suddenly in a different costume. The coat that she wears when she walks into the house is red, yet the coat that she wears when they're at the high school is blue. She also changes costume when she like has to support Jake in some way. For instance, when they're in the living room parlor area and she really doesn't want to be there, but she's being a good girlfriend for him. She changes from the sweater to just the floral dress, a brown undershirt, and a string of pearls. Yet, about a minute later, she's seen back in her costume of the yellow and brown striped sweater. So not only is the young woman changing in dialogue to who Jake wants her to be, she's also changing in her wardrobe, and it's very interesting to see that change. I don't think that I noticed it until like halfway through the movie, like, wait, she's not in the same outfit she was. And it took me like scanning through the entire movie to see like, okay, this is her outfit here and this is her outfit there, and they call her Louisa here, and etc., etc. Also, this is an aside, but I just really love that after they had the conversation about him feeling less than for winning a diligence award in school, he's shown wearing a diligence pin while taking care of his mother. That's a really small detail, but I think it really works within the context of the movie. He's very insecure, especially in this case about his mother being sick and having to take care of his mother. He needs reassurance. He needs his girlfriend to say, oh, it's okay. I admire you for being able to take care of your mother. He's diligent, and it's in the pin, and I just love that detail. I also want to talk about his mom in the like 50s, 60s dress scene here. Though she somewhat sticks with the color palette, she's now like the brightest dressed person in the room with her pastel orange. She is wearing dots or stripes instead of florals. She has bright blue eye makeup on, and I think this is really significant because this is the part of the film in which she basically tells the young woman, go against what Jake wants. Go to the basement. You shouldn't care what Jake wants. He should not rule your life. Go to the basement. It's very interesting that the characters that wear the most contrasting colors are the ones that contrast the most with what Jake feels and what Jake wants. And aside from that, it's really nice to have like these female characters like the mom and also the teenage girl at the ice cream truck. They're part of his fantasy, just like the young woman is, and they're also feeling like they should rebel against it. All right, so let's move on to how the production design shows that, surprise, surprise, Jake is the janitor. This is his extended fantasy. So let's start with the small details and work our way up. I think one of the first things that comes up within the film is that the janitor is working in a classroom, probably a Spanish classroom, and on the board behind him is the word las zapatillas, which is what Jake refers to the slippers that he gives the young woman in his house. Just a very small detail, but I think it works. It's very nice. It's very satisfying when you look at it. When they first enter his parents' home, Jake tries to hide a thermos from him. He hides it in a drawer with a bunch of other thermoses, and the janitor is seen later putting his thermos in a drawer with a bunch of other thermoses. Also, he gives the young woman the slippers that he referred to as las zapatillas. Then at the very end of the film, which is kind of how it ties itself together, if you did not already realize that he was the janitor, he gives her the slippers to walk around the high school with. Pretty early in the film, Jake mentions seeing something pretty disturbing when it comes to one of his family pigs. And throughout the entire family home scene, there are just pigs everywhere. Pig figurines and pig trinkets. The pig motifs really emphasize his trauma with that specific instance throughout the entire film, I guess, especially in the end. So next, let's get into what I consider to be the big reveal of the entire film. The young woman walks into Jake's childhood bedroom and sees all of his memorabilia, all of his memories. We could go frame by frame, honestly, and find just a bunch of things, but as a general overview, I will mention just a couple of things that stood out. He has both physics and chemistry textbooks in his bookshelves, and they have an extended conversation in the beginning about physics. I think the young woman is supposed to be a physicist and supposed to be studying chemistry. Later on, she verbatim quotes a film criticism. It's very wild, very surreal. And the actual film critic, her book is seen on one of his bookshelves. And lastly, the thing that kind of really solidified it for me is that she picks up a book of poetry, and the poem that she supposedly wrote, because she is a poet, is in that book of poetry verbatim. And then the same goes for the basement scene. It's obvious that Jake wanted to be a painter, and the paintings that she showed his parents during the dinner scene are the paintings that he emulated and failed at doing, and that his parents criticized very, very vocally. The basement is also taped up and scratched at, which just shows how deeply ashamed he is of what he wanted to do in life, his failed painting career. Next, we can talk about the high school. I really like this detail with the trash full of cups. I think that it really shows this is how his fantasy ends time and time again. He's done this over and over within his head, and this is how it ends. The high school's color palette is also very similar to the entire movie. The doors are brown, the lockers are blue, the gym is blue, the lights provide a green tinge. This is where he's comfortable, this is where it's quiet, this is where but this is also where he feels the most isolated, the most by himself. This is shown through cinematography more in the high school than it is production design, although I'm sure that the production designer had something to do with the set location and choosing that. But you can really tell that this is where he feels comfortable, but this is also where he feels the most isolated. And in turn, his family house is also where he feels comfortable and isolated. Also, if you'll notice, the janitor's outfit is the same one that she pulled out of the washing machine when she was in the basement. Lastly, we can go into the final sequence. I won't go into this in too much detail because, frankly, I think the production design kind of speaks for itself. But I do like that the stage is a reflection of his life with the farm and the farmhouse in the background. A set of his bedroom is literally rolled onto stage, and that's where he does his final song. And then also the medal that he wears and the exaggerated stage makeup to show that this really is a play. This is an act. But this is also where he gets his final recognition, his accolades. What he really wanted in life is actually something that he has to imagine in death, just like he imagined the young woman, just like he imagined her meeting his parents. He wishes for love from his family and his girlfriend and the people that made him feel so isolated, and that is what he gets. And that's why I really like that this ended on a stage, on a high school stage. But also, it is false. The room is false. His makeup is false. Everyone's makeup is false. And this didn't ever really happen. He died alone and unappreciated. So in conclusion, I think that this was a really stellar use of production design. The production designer was actually Molly Hughes, who was the art director for the last 3 Harry Potter films, which is kind of wild. I just love that everything was purposeful and thought through and added to the general surreal feeling of the film. It really sold the kind of plot and the themes that they were going for, which is, I think, something that all films should go for. Not all films care about production design, and that's a mistake, in my opinion. So yeah, that was the video. Let me know if you want me to do any more of these. I have a couple of ideas. Let me know what you thought of the film down below, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks. I feel like I'm back in school doing a paper for some professor, like, in conclusion, this happened. This is why I like this. And this is why you should like it too. I apologize to all my film professors.